do not just take our word for it.
Yeah, just because sometimes when you're worried about your finances, you kind of just like don't look at them. You think like you're going like it's like when you go personally bankrupt. You think it's like almost similar to that, but it's not in any sense.
Okay, welcome to another edition of the Director First podcast with me, Chris Worden, and I'm joined by a client of ours, Jason, who recently has had to go through an insolvency process. And for clients who have worked with us, we ask people, would you be willing to come and share your story, warts and all? We're not really interested in the detail of what went on in the business, but it's really how getting through insolvency has been for you, because there are so many people out there in September 2024, businesses getting slow, they're starting to struggle, all sorts of anxiety and stress as a result of their companies failing. So we think it's really important that people come out and speak out about this. And hopefully, in fact, Jason, I know that your story is going to help someone else. So first of all, welcome to the podcast. Would you be able to briefly introduce yourself and sort of tell us a little bit about your business before it ended up in liquidation, mate?
Yeah, sure. But beforehand, we was like, it's a personal training business. So we do like group training and yoga and one-on-one, and we've hosted a few retreats and stuff, and we do sports massage therapy. So we do multiple things. And we was absolutely thriving before COVID. Every year we was getting better and better, and we was really taking off just before the COVID stuff.
Yeah, that must have been, I suppose you were guys were one of the first people to actually get shut down, and the last to open again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everything just overnight went to zero, just went kaput. I literally I had to sleep in the gym for months at the start of it all. Wow. So everything just went to crap.
When did you sort of first realize that the business might need to get some type of insolvency advice?
It didn't really even cross my mind, to be honest. I've always just wanted to crack on and just deal with it, and just it wasn't even an option in my mind, to be honest. It's not until I saw some content. I think it was an ad that you did or something. I can't remember, but I saw something. I was like, oh yeah, maybe actually, because of the things that you said in it, like the whole point of the bounce back loan was to get us back to where we were before, and we were nowhere near. We hadn't bounced back at all, because it had been a couple of years. I didn't even think about it. I was like, no, we're actually really struggling.
I think I've done a lot of work with guys and girls in your industry, and a lot of them just, let's say COVID was, it was devastating, but then people got back to it. But the next thing that seemed to kill people, I mean, we just did a really decent CrossFit gym, like, honest to God, I knew the lads who went to collect the gear out to be sold, and they were like really into the training. They went, Chris, I cannot believe they're closing, because it had absolutely everything, but it was the cost to heat the place, rent, business rates. And couple that with people spending less money because they're feeling the pressure at home, mortgages going through the roof, interest rates rising, gas and electric rising. I think it's an industry-wide thing, Jason. I think people are really, really struggling. It's only last week we've had it in our local area that a gym is shut down, and overnight. It's made the press because people have paid for memberships and such. It's really, really sad. Obviously, the minute that you sort of thought, well, actually, this guy might be talking about me, what was it? Was it an epiphany moment? What sort of just joined the dots up and go, well, actually, it's worth speaking to? Because normally people call me, they're in a place of fear. It's like, oh my God, they've thought about this for months.
Yeah.
You mentioned an ad. You click on one of my ads and I will follow you about till the end of time. With algorithms. So what was going on for you when you sort of started to think about that?
Yeah, so there was multiple things for me. It was when before the COVID stuff happened, I was spending in a way that was not sustainable during the COVID times. Like I was just spending, I was getting myself into a bit of debt, but it was like good, healthy debt. It was zero interest. And if the income kept coming, it would have been absolutely fine. I had a financial plan for it all. It's just that put me in a right pickle financially in my personal life, and then in the business as well. And then I started having loads of health issues as well. I got diagnosed with MS in 2022, and I went really downhill last year. I was in that hospital for a good 6 months. I had loads of issues with that. So it's multifactorial. There's loads of stuff going on. And I feel that the support of you guys has really, really helped with that spoke of the problem wheel, if you will. Yeah.
Well, listen, we appreciate that, and we're under no illusions that when you're looking for this type of advice and service, most people, in fact, we ask people, do not just take our word for it. By all means, speak to other people, go and get other views. It's a really big decision. Sort of, what was it that made you decide to work with us guys?
It's one of them things. I don't know. It's just like it just intuitively felt right. I'm a very good judge of character with people and stuff. And I spoke to yourself, and I think it was your brother I spoke to as well. And
brother, yeah.
I just felt like I could trust you guys, and and it's gone well. It's gone really well. So,
well, listen, appreciate that as well. With regards to the liquidation process, right? Because that's like really nerve-wracking for a lot of people, the whole idea of liquidation. Because I think, back in the day, a creditors meeting where you could walk into a room where all the creditors are sat in front of you, shouting, where's my this, where's that, and where's the other. So there's a lot of misconceptions about the process of liquidation. Would you be able to walk us through what happened with you? How did it work? How did you feel? In your own words, really.
It was very straightforward. Most of the stuff that I had to do is just very, it's outlined, very simple. It's very underwhelming. Like I thought it would be like a overwhelming process with all these different boxes to tick, but it's like there's really not much to it. You guys really kind of do most of the stuff, behind the scenes, and there's not really much to it. So yeah, it's just been great. It just felt like a massive weight off my chest.
Brilliant, and that's it. A lot of people. The only thing, there's a lot of papers, isn't there? There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different bits to sign. But if you think about the stress it's going to relieve, and yes, we've got to get a bit of information from a director. But I had a lady the other week, and she's like, I was expecting like a or crash bang wallet. This is it. And oh no, we're in liquidation, and it was just so. I think she said it was underwhelming as well. She just said it was so nondescript. It was like I rang a couple of weeks later. I said, "How you doing?" She went, "Yeah. What do you mean?" I said, "Well, that was your creditors meeting. You're in liquidation now." And she's like, "Chris, is that it?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's it. I think a lot of people. What I did, you kind of associate almost. You think like you're going like it's like when you go personally bankrupt, you think it's like almost similar to that, but it's not in any sense. You think it's like a big dramatic thing and it's going to have massive impact, which I suppose in certain circumstances it might do, but for me it's not really, it's all been positive.
I think the main worries for directors when they're putting a business into liquidation is, right, can I be a director again? Am I going to be banned from being a director? And in 99% of cases, a director's not going to get disqualified as long as and I never go into specifics with people, but you behaved as a director should you got to the point where you know what, I'm struggling right now. You took advice, you complied, you got everything through in a timely manner. So there's no threat of disqualification. The next thing, people worry about losing their house. It's like something that keeps them awake at night. And again, in 99% of cases, somebody's personal assets aren't going to come into the mix at all. It's an insolvency myth. Am I going to be made personally liable for business debts? And the truth is, when you set a limited company up, like limited liability, that structure around you, means that any debts with that business aren't Jason's, they're the limited companies.
Yeah.
And in a liquidation, the unsecured debts, HMRC, VAT, PAYE, corporation tax, energy bills, business rates, bounce back loans, C bills less than 250, they get written off and they go into the liquidation. So it's like there's a lot of misconception out there, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of scare stories as well.
Yeah, and I think that there's quite a lot of maybe accountants and stuff that really don't know too much about this stuff. So I think when you approach an accountant and you expect them to be well versed in understanding this, when most of the ones that I've experienced really don't know much about it at all. So someone, a specialist like yourself, that you need to speak to.
100%. Do you know how I explain it, me? I mean, I'm a sucker for a football analogy, but like an accountant and an insolvency person, they look like they're the same thing. You'd expect them to know what to do. It's like a football team. You've got a centre forward and a right back, and a centre forward won't do a right back's job well, and vice versa. So they generally, they'll have a very, very basic understanding of how insolvency may or may not work. But what a lot of people, I found this week actually, is accountants will try and go, they'll try and, when a business is going into liquidation, they'll generally have a relationship with an insolvency practitioner. And that relationship may be based on nothing more than if they give them a job, they pay them a referral fee. And I had one this week, and it's like, I sort of lost my temper a little bit with this guy. I'm like, listen, you're basically pushing this firm into something that's gonna go spectacularly wrong for that director, and you've not highlighted it. And it's almost like, and this isn't everyone, you know, I'd hate to think that all accountants are like that. That's not what I mean, but I think when a business is going into liquidation, it's almost, well, you're not much use to that accountant anymore. So can they monetize, you know, drag a last bit of money out of it? And it's not right. So I've done a video, I don't know if it's gone out yet, but it was something like, don't always go with the insolvency practitioner your accountant recommends, because sometimes it's not in your best interests.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what we did. We usually, I mean, you know, we had a good few chats and we sort of got everything out on the table, and it was like, right, we've got to look for problems, haven't we? You know, is there anything here that's going to bite you on the arse if you do it? And and thankfully with this job, it was really straightforward, and you know, I call it very, you know, very, from our point of view, a very boring liquidation, which is really good from your point of view. It sort of gives people a bit of comfort when I say that to them. It's like, thank you know.
There's not much going on. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank God for that. I mean, were there any like specific challenges that you faced during either going into liquidation or the steps before it? Were there any like real, you know, sharp intake of breath moments for you?
No, there was just I wanted to keep the trading name for the business. That was one of the main things. So that one I was a bit concerned about, a bit worried about, but we had a couple of discussions about that, and there's a couple of simple things that I had to do to get that sorted, which I did in the end. So
and it's worth digging into that now, because that is like a big question for people. If I liquidate a limited company, can I use that name again? And it's called Section 216 of the Insolvency Act. And it essentially says if you liquidate using a name, you cannot use that name or a similar name for a period of 5 years. But there are ways that you can circumnavigate this issue. And what most directors decide to do is they agree to buy the name from the liquidator. And in most cases, a name doesn't have a huge amount of value to anyone other than that director. So you will pay a nominal fee to the liquidator. On the day of liquidation, you then are to advertise the fact that you've bought that name in the London or the Edinburgh Gazette, depending on what side of the wall you're at. And you've got to inform creditors that you are buying that name. Now, there's all set out letters to to use. It's really, really straightforward. It costs about 180 quid, I think, to advertise the fact. And then you do that and you've told everybody that you've bought the name. Nobody can come back and frustrate that. So again, it's as long as you get the right guidance, it's a relatively straightforward process to follow.
Yeah.
So what aspects of our service did you find most helpful and reassuring?
As I said, that when I say intuition, I don't mean like it's, you know, just purely based off nothing logic. I think it's based on the questioning, the line of questioning, you know, making me aware of potential. I don't know. It's just that the whole line of questioning, you can tell that it's like you're thinking about long term. You don't want me to do it for the wrong reasons and for something bad to happen, because then, you know, it will come back and bite you on the arse as a company.
Yeah.
You know, so you can tell that you've really got the long term kind of mindset with your business, you know, so, and it shows you have integrity. And yeah, I don't know, just generally just felt good about the whole thing with you guys.
I mean, there's a saying, isn't there? You can believe in God, but you've got to tie up your camels. And what that means to me is, like, you know, if anyone's watching this, and we're not for everybody, you know, we get that, you know. That's
from Ram Dass, right?
Is it? I don't know. It was a great.
Yeah. He says in one of his lectures, he says, believe in God, but tie your camel. And then he corrected himself. Someone corrected him. He says, no, it's believe in God and tie your camel. So
right. I don't know where I got that from, but I heard it once and I thought, I absolutely love that. Because with this, you can have faith in somebody, right? You know, I'm very much, I get a gut feeling about people.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want on a big decision like this, I want to verify things. Like if I was in, and I have been in your position as well, you know, that's how I got into this industry. And it was just really hard to make a decision, because I was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I'm knowing I need to liquidate a business. These insolvency people I'm speaking to are talking at me in a language I don't understand. No one's giving me a straight answer. So what we've tried to do here, and there are other firms that have followed suit, and I quite like that. You know, I'm cool with them copying our videos, cheeky. But there's firms out there that will actually answer your questions before expecting any money off you, and they're actively asking for reviews. You know, this week we got 300 reviews on Trustpilot, like literally, and we launched this advisory in January. So we've got 300 reviews since the start of January, and they're all like, they're not just Chris was nice. It's like detailed, you know, real reviews about what we do here. And if you're watching this and going, right, I don't really know who to choose, you want to go with a firm that gives you a bit of time and is willing to put a little bit of effort in to actually get your business. Full proposal, outlining all costs, checking for anything that's going to bite you on the arse down the line. But most importantly, did they actively ask for reviews? I mean, in today's day and age, if you're not asking for reviews in your business is shit, or you're not proud of your business. Why on earth would you not be going, oh, do you like how
because you're worried about what they'd say? You
know what I mean? It's like, but no, listen, I'm really glad that we could sort of get you through, and you know, you found it reassuring. Sort of, I know for me, when I went through liquidation, and I look back at this now, and I've learned a lot of lessons, and I learned so much off my clients. And if you look back at this business and sort of, there were a number of things that you could never do anything about. But if you're super critical, is there anything that you go, you know, next time, this is what I'm going to take into my next venture? Was there any like key nuggets that you picked up along the way?
As in regards to when I start a business again?
If you start another business again, was there any lessons you can take out of that and take into your life going forward?
Yeah, just I don't really know. I think it's just more, just have a finger on the pulse with your finances a bit more, and try to preemptively see things come in and seek out stuff, rather than, as I said, I didn't really think about insolvency before. If I would have come across you maybe 2 years ago, I would have maybe even got the ball rolling then. So it's yeah, just because sometimes when you're worried about your finances, you kind of just like don't look at them. You just don't pay any attention, which then obviously makes it worse in the long run. So I think just generally just facing it a bit more often, and
And the other end of that is, even when things are good, I mean, I'm guilty of this myself. I'm thinking, like, in my head, very big picture. I'm like, believe it or not, for someone who works in insolvency, if I have to look at numbers and spreadsheets all day, I get an headache.
Yeah.
It's like, that real minutiae detail.
Yeah.
And sometimes even when it's going good, it's like, yeah, we're making money. We're selling it at that, we're buying it at that. There's a good margin in there. But there's no real thought, there's no real tax planning, there's no real, and then people 18 months down the line get whacked with a big corporation tax, and they're like, I've not saved anything for the corporation tax. So
you see the money coming in, you're like, oh, okay, well, now I can spend this. It's the same. It's never a linear. I started doing ice baths at one point a couple of years ago, and I did a 30-day challenge. I got up at 4:30 a.m. every day, and I got in this ice barrel, 0 degrees every morning. And I thought I was going to try and beat my time a little bit each day, and it didn't work like that at all. 1 minute I did one day I did 1 minute, next was 2, the next was 5, next was 10, then it all went back to 1 minute, and I was like, shit, what's going on? I thought I was going to get better and better and better. And it's as similar as how the business works. When things are going well, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get too excited, because it could go to shit next month, and you need some nuts in the.
I think information is key with this. Like, literally, and some of us aren't naturally good at it. I'm not naturally good at like, I'm not an accountant, So one of the most important things that I've learned is to, like, right, do I have a profit and loss every month? Good, bad, or ugly? What am I bringing into the business? What am I going out of? And am I checking it once a month? Now, you can use Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, whatever software you're using, but you've got to put the information in to be able to get the information out. But that, for me, has been an absolute game changer, because I can look at stuff and actually go, you know what? Okay, really good month, that. Okay, have I put that much away from my corporation tax? Have I put that much away from my VAT? And what I do here is, I use Starling. It's super simple. You have these things in your app called Spaces. So, like, if I get I don't know, say an invoice of £2,000 plus VAT, 2,400 quid, I can put 400 quid away in my VAT account, and I've got £2,000, and I'll go, right, well, out of that £2,000, I'll save 15% for my corporation tax. So I've always got more than my bills are going to be in these little spaces. When the bill comes, I can pay it. And I sort of know what's left is actually the company's. I'm not spending the VAT. I'm not spending the corporation tax. But it takes some effort to get literate with those types of numbers. And, a good bookkeeper should be able to do that for a business for a relatively small fee. But that's it. It's like having, and if you do that when things are going good, if things start to go to shit, you can look at it and you can see it quicker.
That's something I definitely wish I would have, that's just some older man advice for a younger man kind of thing. It's like, make sure you do that. It's like, because I remember the first thing that comes into your head as soon as you get a big sale, it's like, well, can I have a holiday, new car? Should I get a dog or something? Whatever, you start thinking
transplant.
About exactly, all that sort of stuff. You start thinking about all the things that you can spend it on automatically. Like, I can justify that. I can do that. And then you don't even, you're like, if we'll sort it out because I've earned this much, it's going to get better next month. So I'll just work it out. My future self will deal with it.
Yeah. And I heard this term, lifestyle creep. Like, it's like, as your income grows, your lifestyle will grow. And instead of having that,
And do you know what I think hurt me a lot as well? Is when you listen to a lot of like law of attraction based content and all that spiritual stuff, and you're thinking abundance mindset, and you've got to act as if you're abundant, and you start really taking that on board. You start thinking, well, I've got to act as if I'm abundant. Well, if I'm abundant, I'll spend loads of money and I'll get everything I want, and I'll do this and do that, and you start doing that, and it's ignorant to do so. You know what I mean? That's one aspect of it, but it's you know, I feel like I fell down that, and I was listening to that so much.
Mate, have a look at that, right? It's a tattoo I got done about, you know, it says, it stands for, I know I am receiving now. I watched The Secret, right?
Yeah.
15 years ago, 20 years ago when it come out, and it absolutely revolutionized how I live my life, right? And like you know, it's like act as if. Do you know where it really kicked me in the bollocks? Is when I had to liquidate my business.
Yeah.
Because my head, everything I read, I loved personal development. I loved it all, you know, goals, intentions, affirmations. And it was telling me I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this. But actually the reality was, from my situation was, in the December, something changed and our business model was pretty much over. It was over overnight. But I've read that much personal development. I'm dangerous with it, right? And I carried on for probably 3 or 4 months longer than I should have done, thinking things had turned round. And I think personal development is really important. I think positive thinking is really, really important. But sometimes in this thing, it can really, really trip you up.
There's a fine line where it can turn into delusion.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
The main thing that's helped me is that you don't so much act as if you're wealthy and abundant. You got to come from a state of feeling you are. And when you're feeling you are, that's the thing, that the desire for them extra external things diminish. Do you know what I mean? Because when you feel whole and you feel complete, you feel content, and you're like, wow, you know, I could get a car, but I don't really need it because I feel so good. You don't feel like you need anything added on to you. So I think
it's in here, isn't it? It's in here.
That's where I was getting it wrong. I was like, act as if you're abundant. Okay, well, I get this, I buy this, I do that. Every time we go out for a meal with a group of friends or my family, I'd be like, I'll get the bill, you know, you're just constantly spending in that abundance. And it feels good, but on a very superficial level.
You know what I've found, right, is that financial insecurity for me, right? It has nothing to do with what's in the bank. Because like I've been on the bones of my arse. You know, I've been like living on credit cards and overdrafts before, and I've had really healthy bank balances, and I've had a really healthy bank balance in the past. I'm thinking I'm going to end up in a skip. You know, like that little voice going, "It's all over, Chris. No one's ever going to want to work with you again. They're all going to find out about you." You know, that's the nonsense that that goes through my head from time to time, and it's like, you know, when I just do the right things and I stay grounded, you know, and I look at actually what I have got, you know what I mean? I mean, I've got mates who are really, really wealthy, like super wealthy. They've got no peace. Their heads are a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, next.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot as well. And it's Scarface quote, as long as you've got your word and your balls, that's all you need. You just need courage, and you need to stick with what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
You know, that'll take you far, you know.
Listen, in business, is that there's so many people out there, right, that talk a good game and do not deliver. I mean, I'm 42, I had my first business at 25, right? And I've never got it all right, you know what I mean? But, you know, over a period of time, you start to build a reputation. And all I've tried to do is I just try and do what I say I'm going to do. That is it. It's like literally.
That's the main thing I sense from you, you know, when we were talking and stuff. It's just that I don't know what it is. I can't quite put your finger on it, but you just know, okay, this person's got a bit of integrity in just the way that they're carrying themselves and the way that they're talking, you know.
It doesn't take that much to rise above everyone else, I don't think.
No.
Because most people, like I said, I've been in business quite a long time. There's not that many people that do what they say they're going to do.
It's a simple thing.
Yeah, and I thought, you know, when I find someone like that, I stick to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I want to be in their company. You know what I mean? In fact, I want them in my peer group because, and they generally do well. You know, I mean, regardless of what goes on as well. I mean, I've had friends that have actually had to go through this before, and they've come out of the other side, and because they have been people of integrity. Okay, I remember one guy. It was quite a bad insolvency. There was quite a lot of debt that had built up, and again, to a degree, it wasn't this guy. He was just blindsided by something. And once the dust had settled, all his old suppliers went, "Listen, we want to work with you still."
Yeah,
and he couldn't believe it.
You're a dad, Chris.
I've got 4 girls, mate. I've got a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 9-year-old.
I'm going to have to go in about 10 minutes. I've got my daughter calling me now. I've got to get her from the bus stop. But I think that's where it comes from. It's having, for me, that's where it came from. I'm like, I remember when I was a kid being let down by my dad all the time, and it made a big impact. And eventually you just stop trusting him. You just stop ignoring his words are nothing. Do you know what I mean? I think as a father, I'm like, I will not say anything unless I'm sure I'm going to make it happen. You know, I'm not going to lightly just say, "Oh, I'm going to pick you up and get some ice cream after school." To a 7-year-old kid, that's the world to them. You know, you'll devastate them if you go back on that. You know, so I think,
mate, it changes, man. It changes, doesn't it? Your life does change. And listen, with this in mind, right, I will start to wrap us up. Sure. So, first thing, what advice would you give to other business owners who were facing a similar situation to you, struggling, can't pay the bills on time, debts mounting up? What would you say?
So I would write down and get the points of the things that you're concerned about, and then give you a call. Just get on the phone and have a little chat, you know, to answer any questions you've got. And maybe it's not the right thing for you right now. You know, you don't know until you speak to someone that's a specialist. As a PT, I get people all the time that the fix to some of the issues that they have are so simple for me, because I've dealt with that problem over and over again. But for them, it's like they're completely clueless. They don't know whether to do this or that. Do they strengthen it? Should they do tissue release? Should they take a different supplement? Is it their diet? Is their sleep? You know, so for me, it's quite simple to fix some little problems, and it's the same for you guys. You just need to go and chat to you. You know, it doesn't cost anything to just pick up the phone and have a little chat and just kind of go from there.
Sort of now the liquidation process is behind you. How do you feel?
Yeah, look, just kind of just don't even think about it anymore. It's one of them things, isn't it? Like as soon as you don't realize how much you were kind of like, it was in the back of your mind all the time until it's gone. So yeah.
Listen, to wrap up, mate, before you go and get the little girl.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to share about your experience about working with debt directors, or have you got any final words for the podcast, Jason?
No, just I'm grateful that I came across you guys. I'm glad you exist, and I will be recommending you to anyone that I know that will benefit from your services.
Mate, you've been a really, really good guest. Thank you for putting your faith in me, mate. I really do appreciate it, and have a mega weekend. God bless you, pal.
Thanks, Chris. God bless you too.